centuries before Magellan's fleet ever crossed the Pacific, before Manila was a colonial capital, and long before the peso or galleons existed, there was already commerce, there was already gold, there was already global trade. The pre-colonial Filipinos weren't isolated tribes hidden in the jungle. They were seafarers, artisans, and traders who exchanged goods with India, China, Arabia, and Southeast Asia. And they did it without coins, without kings, and without conquest. They did it through Kalakalang Barter. This is the untold story of how ancient Filipinos became part of the earliest international trade networks, long before the West ever arrived. Before the Spanish introduced coins and taxes, trade in the Philippines operated on a barter-based economy. Kalakalang barter refers to the non-monetary exchange of goods, often driven by mutual need, seasonal timing, and long-standing relationships. This wasn't primitive, it was strategic. Communities along the coasts of Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao exchanged local products such as beeswax, gold, pearls, cotton, and forest goods with foreign merchants from China, India, and the Arab world. Barter was guided by customs, respect, and trust. Trade was often face-to-face, with deals sealed by honor and reputation rather than currency or contracts. In this world, your word was your bond, and your goods were your passport. One of the oldest and most documented trading relationships was with Imperial China. As early as the Tang dynasty, 7th through 10th century AD, Chinese records mention the land of Maui, believed to be part of modern-day Mindoro or southern Luzon. Chinese merchants sailed into Philippine harbors, exchanging porcelain, silk, tea, jade, beads, and bronze mirrors for beeswax, cotton, gold, mother of pearl, and exotic hardwoods. The Filipino elite, known as datus, collected luxury Chinese goods as symbols of status. Archaeological digs across the Philippines have uncovered vast amounts of Chinese pottery, evidence of how widespread this trade truly was. Chinese junk ships would arrive in fleets, while locals paddled out in caracoas or balangays, offering goods and receiving not just items, but ideas and prestige. Arab traders, mainly from Persia and the Arabian Peninsula, were sailing through Southeast Asia by the 9th century, stopping in Sulu, Mindoro, and Palawan. They traded horses, perfumes, colored glass, textiles, incense, and silver jewelry. In return, they received pearls, edible birds' nests, sea cucumbers, camphor, and wax, highly prized items in Arabian markets. But Arabs didn't just bring trade, they brought culture and religion. It was through these interactions that Islam first arrived in the southern Philippines, long before Spanish Catholicism. Merchants and missionaries often came hand in hand. Barter wasn't just economic, it was also cultural diplomacy. Trade with India dates back to the Gupta period, 3rd to 6th century AD, and later through Srivijaya and Majapahit intermediaries. Indian goods, spices, beads, brass gongs, weapons, and colorful textiles were bartered for local resources like gold, aromatic woods, and marine goods. But India's influence wasn't just in materials. Through barter and diplomacy came Hindu and Buddhist beliefs, Sanskrit scripts, and storytelling traditions. In fact, the Tagalog term for king, rajah, comes directly from Indian influence. Indian trade deeply shaped the culture of the pre-Hispanic Philippines, particularly in rajahnates like Cebu and Butuan. Without roads or coins, the real infrastructure of pre-colonial trade was the balangay, a wooden plank boat built without nails, using dowels and lashings. These vessels carried goods, warriors, and ideas across the South China Sea and Sulu Sea. Balangays were fast, sleek, and capable of crossing open ocean. Entire fleets would travel to meet Chinese junks, Javanese traders, or Arab dhows at agreed-upon ports. The word barangay, still used today for Filipino villages, comes from the balangay, showing how trade and community were inseparable. Filipinos were not just passive recipients, they had goods the world wanted. Beeswax for candles and medicines. Gold mined in Luzon and Mindoro. Pearls and shells from the Visayan Sea. Camphor, cinnamon, and hardwoods from the forests. Dried marine life prized in China and Arabia. In exchange, Filipinos accessed goods they didn't produce: silk, weaponry, horses, dyes, religious texts, and metals. These exchanges boosted local economies, elevated the power of datus and rajahs, and fostered intercultural literacy. This was a world without borders, connected not by empires, but by trust and tides. This sophisticated network of barter lasted for centuries, until Spain's arrival in 1521. The Spanish imposed taxes, coinage, and monopolies. They disrupted old trade patterns, outlawed direct barter with foreign powers, and claimed the Philippines as part of a European empire. But in doing so, they also erased memories of a thriving, self-sufficient system where Filipinos were respected participants in global commerce. What was lost wasn't just economic freedom, it was cultural autonomy and regional prestige. Kalakalang barter was not just about trading goods, it was about diplomacy, relationships, and self-reliance. Ancient Filipinos were not waiting to be discovered. They were already navigating oceans, hosting foreign merchants, and exporting their wealth and knowledge across Asia. In a time before borders, before colonizers, before empires, Filipinos were already global. And in remembering Kalakalang barter, we remember that Filipino history doesn't begin with colonization. It begins with connection.